Morning. Hey, Ryan, I started listening to It Takes What It Takes.
Oh, you like that?
Love that. Really
awesome.
good. Yeah, it's very good. Thanks for the recommendation.
Of course.
What?
All right. 9 o'clock, everybody, let's get started. Bless you, Giuseppe, even though I didn't hear you sneeze. Casey, I'm assuming you're ready to go for today, right?
Yep.
Great. Okay. Well, first, let's get started on some gratitude. I certainly grateful to have gotten a few days away, got to see my son, and haven't seen him since Christmas, so that was nice, and we had a really nice, relaxing time. But let's go around the room. Who wants to go? Whose speaker is on? Oh, look, there's John and Emily. Emily, how about you?
I'm actually grateful for the guy behind me today. He just helps me day and night with all the questions that I have.
Awesome.
Very grateful for it.
Right on. John, what about you?
He'll reciprocate that he's grateful for me.
Exactly. I'm grateful. Grateful to be able to help out Emily and Jan and talk through their loans, and grateful to have loans to talk through.
That's right. It is a great position to be in. Claire, how about you?
Grateful that I got to get away this weekend up to the mountains to see my mom and stepdad. And then I have 4 days left and I get to come back to the office.
Right on. There you go. Yeah, right. 4 days, 4 more days. That's crazy. Jan, how about you?
Super grateful for the awesome weather that we've had. And Emily stole mine, but super grateful for John and all his help and putting up with all my questions, and Casey as well, who's answered a few questions.
Right on. Jacqueline?
I'm grateful I got my vegetable garden planted finally this weekend.
Nice. Tomatoes?
6 kinds.
There you go. All right. Look forward to those. Giuseppe?
I'm grateful we had a good family weekend, and grateful for Ryan and June that covered for me this weekend, which was nice. Feel like I haven't had a weekend off since like September last year, so it was very nice.
Yeah, you had a big family weekend. First communion for the twins.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Ryan?
I'm grateful for the walk I went on this morning with our dog. I saw a really cool sunrise, so I enjoyed that.
You were up that early?
Oh, yeah.
For you. Right on. Casey?
I am grateful for patio beers. Haven't had one in a long time, but meeting a friend after work today to just go sit on a patio and have a beer.
Well, that's nice. Where at?
I think we'll probably just go to Chaos right next door.
Right on. For you. Tom Tacker.
I'm also grateful for getting away this weekend. I got a buddy that spends some time in the summers on a cattle ranch up in Walden. So I got to go up to Walden and stay a night up there on Saturday night and fish on this private little stream on this ranch. It was a lot of fun, really relaxing.
Very cool. June?
I am thankful for the great weather and being able to get outside and do outdoor things with the kids after work and on the weekend. It's just nice. I like the summertime.
There you go. Chris Hobber?
I'm thankful for some time out of the office. I forget how important that is in our business to get away for a little bit, because you come back with some more energy and makes work fun.
There you go. Annie?
I'll have to kind of go with what June said. My husband and I went hiking on Sunday, and it was just really nice to get up into the mountains a little bit and get some fresh air.
Right on. Yeah, that's the thing about living here. I've lived here my whole life, and I don't appreciate the mountains nearly as much as people who didn't live here their whole life appreciate them.
Yeah,
when I hear it from everybody, I'm like, it really is pretty cool. So that's cool to hear. Good job. Well, and it's been crazy. I haven't seen the number yet, but I wrote down on a Post-it note. Also, I'll pull it up while Casey's doing his deal. But I wrote down where we were on applications Wednesday night on a Post-it note, where we were on applications and credit pulls, and I checked it. I wasn't on my email the whole time I was gone, but I checked it while I checked the Salesforce app. And it was like, I was like, wait, what? Is that right? And so I'll refresh it and we'll get, I'll tell everybody where it is when we're done. So Casey, can you share your screen or?
I should be able to, hold on. Make sure I'm showing everything here. All right, is that coming through?
Yep.
Sweet. I mean, I know we've kind of gone through this a couple times over the last couple of weeks, obviously, and everyone's got their own little twist on everything that we're doing here. It's been helpful for me just because I may do things very similarly to certain people, but there's just little bits and pieces that you learn that you can add to your script or things that you want to address as you're presenting this. So that being said, I kind of have a similar setup, more of a kind of a hybrid between what Jacqueline and what Chris had presented already. I prefer to do the application over the phone, right? So we have the initial goals call as soon as that lead comes in. When I can get on the phone with them, I prefer to do the application right then and there. I don't like to send them the online thing. It feels impersonal. Plus, I can get a lot more questions in as we're walking through that application. They give me a lot more clarification on how we can structure a potential, whether it's a refinance or a purchase. It just gives us a better idea of what options we're going to show them. So from there, I'll let them know, hey, specifically, thanks for this information. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to send you 2 emails. One of those emails is just going to be a general follow-up to the introduction. If it's a purchase, I'm sending them the Zenith Certified Buyer video. In that, I do ask everyone to watch that. I think it's a great way to get them to understand some of those guarantees that just don't make sense right off the bat when we're trying to tell them anything over the phone during that goals call. I'll tell them the other thing is going to be a link to your online borrower report. Now that's going to be a couple initial documents needed that we can review prior to us putting some options together for you. As soon as I have that in, we'll schedule a time, or I try to schedule a time with them right then. Say, hey, let's schedule a time that you've got enough time to get me these documents. I can review them and then get you a total cost analysis. Now, as soon as we get off that call, I'll send them Flowify. I'll build out a total cost analysis, try to get all of their data and information entered right then. And then just as they get documents in, all I have to do is go through, verify that information, make sure everything lines up based on the conversations that we've had. So typically within 24 hours, I'll send them, or we'll have set up a time that we're going to review this. I actually send them the link about 3 minutes before our call. The reason being, I know some people will send it right away. And the reason I send it right before the call, I find it easier to address questions as we go through it. And it'll be interesting to see other people's takes on that. But the reason being is they'll have a whole bunch of questions when they first look at this, but then they don't have a resource to get an answer right away. And I don't like them having to wait on that. So I'd rather run through it, go over the template of what we're looking at, what their options are, address questions, and then say, hey, I know you'll go back into this now that you've got a good idea of what we're looking at. Please let me know if you have any additional questions that we didn't address today. So once we get into the actual total cost analysis call, my general script right from the bat is going to be, you know, Dave, hey, thanks for taking the time to chat with me about this today. Right now, I know we're blocking off about 30 to 40 minutes. It's really going to depend on, you know, the level of depth of the questions that you want to get into and the numbers that we're going to review. I'll always tell them, especially right now, hey, as we go into this, we're going to cover quite a bit. And normally, I would love to meet with you face to face, but given the current circumstances, I know that's not possible. So keep in mind that when we meet face to face, I can tell when you're about to raise your hand or when you're about to ask me a question. So I can't really see your facial reaction or your expressions as we go through this. So please interrupt me, ask questions, stop me if something doesn't make sense as we go through it, because I want to make sure that we address it as we go. You're not gonna, like, I'll tell them, I'll say, you're not going to hurt my feelings. Seriously, just interrupt me as I talk. And I've gotten good responses from that, and it helps me have them answer questions along the way and actually speak up and ask.
That's a great thing to say. So you're not getting them on camera a lot of the time?
No, because honestly, I've tried that, and it was about 50-50 in my experience, where they would be like, all right, I don't look, Hubbard never puts his camera on, right? Because he doesn't want to be on camera. Not everyone wants to be on camera, wants you to see them because they're in their home. They might be wearing sweats. Who knows what's going on in the background.
Got it.
So I've had a lot of people just be like, hey, I don't have to be on video, right? Oh, that's fine.
That's funny. I never, you know what, and it didn't occur to me that that's probably, I'm guessing that you're all seeing something similar to that, where, because even here, most people I don't like the way I look on video. It's like, it's a mirror. I don't know why this bothers you, but but I never thought about it from the consumer standpoint. So good for you. So that's a great script, dude. I like it.
Yeah, so we'll go, that's kind of I'll just say to them, hey, that's my spiel, just to let you know right at the beginning, what we're going to cover in this call. So I'll lay it out for them right off the bat. Say, hey, first and foremost, you're looking at a ton of numbers here. It's a little overwhelming at first, especially if it's your first time running through this. Now, if it's a first time purchaser, you know, it's a little bit more straightforward. If they're doing a refinance, I'll say, hey, we can get a little bit more creative with the way that we lay things out for you guys. So that's why I chose the refinance breakdown today versus purchase, because that's what we've kind of covered. So what I'll say is, hey, we're going to go through this. I'm just going to run through before we talk any options. I'm going to run through the general template of what you're looking at, because I want you to be able to go back and interact with this link and understand where you can find your costs, your fees, and know exactly what they mean. And once we get through a general layout, then we'll discuss the options and go into a little bit more depth on pros and cons of each and what we can kind of dial in as far as what works with your budget for your monthly payment and your cash to close, because ultimately those are the two that matter the most. Now, going into it, like I said, right off the bat, we're just going to go over layout. So we'll run through and we'll kind of highlight. We'll go, hey, look, here's your property value. More often than not, the first time that we meet, we're looking at a couple different values. In refinances, it's not going to matter. We go in our loan amount. Of course, this matters in refinance, because when we look at option, well, column 2 and column 3, right? In some scenarios, we want to keep your loan amount similar to what you're actually paying right now, rather than increasing it through deferred payments. So we've got property value, loan amount, blended. You'll see a blended rate and a blended APR. The reason you're going to say blended is because some of these options show a first and a second. So we'll go over that in a little bit more detail as well. Term, we're looking at 30 years for all of these. Your monthly payment and your cash to close, again, like I said, are going to be the biggest numbers that we want to dial in and make sure that fit your budget properly. Once we go below that bottom line, we're going to get into a little bit more detail of comparing loan programs costs and really going to determine short and long-term savings, especially when we start looking at the graphs over here. I'll always direct someone to click right into the more info button. This is where we get into a breakdown of your monthly payment. we get into the middle tab of closing costs, and the final tab is reinvestment strategies. Those reinvestment strategies are a little bit more in depth than we'll get today right off the bat, but it is something that we will bring up to try and help you structure and save some money down the road. Now, payment breakdown is pretty much straightforward, right? It gives you your full monthly payment. If you're unfamiliar with this, meat and potatoes, your loan is your principal and interest here. Because we're looking at scenarios with first and a second versus structuring it into a potential jumbo loan, you'll see that payment there. Then I'll always ask someone, are you familiar with what your escrow accounts are? Dave, are you familiar with what an escrow account is?
I'm muted. Oh, yes, I am. You want me to say no?
No, I want you to say yes.
Yes, I'm familiar with it.
Perfect. So then you're familiar with the way that we look at this. It's similar to kind of a, very simply put, a set it and forget it account, right? It's set up for you at the time of closing.
Okay.
And you're paying into it at the time of closing. Your taxes and insurance are then dispersed on your behalf out of that account when those come due, right?
Right.
Perfect.
Okay.
Now, I'm sure as some of you guys have had many of these calls, even when people say yes, a lot of times they don't know what their escrow accounts are, or they don't fully understand it. And it's one of the simplest things to explain. And that one point, to me, has gotten so many people going, wow, thanks. I thought I knew what that was. I thought I knew how it worked, but I really had no clue.
Really?
All the time.
That's funny.
Mortgage insurance, not a factor here. Again, that gets us to our total monthly payment. Now we go into closing costs. I'll go into this every single time, again, right off the bat. I want to make sure people know where to click into this. I'll tell people, hey, closing costs and your cash to close is going to be down payment plus costs. Now, this is a very generic overview of costs, so please always direct towards the fee detail. Now, in this case, wow, this is an old template, but so this is the actual old fees, but we'll go through the actual breakdown of fees. You know, fixed loan fee is the only fee that's paid to Zenith Home Loans. While every other fee is a third-party fee. Walk them through just very quickly what each fee is for. Right. Another thing that I will cover, which you can't highlight, and it seems kind of hidden in here to me, which is a little weird, but I'll go over prepaid interest too. Just a little known fact that most people don't realize is that your mortgage is actually paid in arrears. So something to be aware of. So especially when we talk about refinance numbers, when you defer 2 months of payments, or on the radio, skip 90 days of payments, right? It's bullshit, right? You're not skipping, no bank is giving you free money, you're still paying for it somewhat. So that's when we'll start to talk about what we can do with structuring a refinance and different pros and cons to those options. So here's what you're looking at on your first right now. You're in a current jumbo loan, you have a 7-1 arm, and you're potentially going to run out of time on that within the next couple of years. Now, in this scenario, are we going to save a decent amount of money? Where are our savings coming from? And what can we do to get there? I'll explain the current jumbo market and how the rates on jumbos aren't necessarily following suit with conforming loans right now. I'll go into a little bit more detail on the conforming loan limit versus the jumbo loan limit, just so that they'll understand these options. Now, our best options realistically right now, which has kind of flipped a 180 on us over the last 6 months or so, is going to be structuring with a first and a second so that we can bypass that jumbo loan. What that does is it's going to make our documentation, our requirements a little bit easier. It's going to save us significantly more money as well because our interest rate is lower. Now, pros, my monthly payment's less. One of the cons that I want you to be aware of, and it's not necessarily a con, it depends on what your goals are and how quickly you can manage this and pay it down, but keep in mind that that second loan is an interest-only payment when it's structured like this. That means your payment on it's a little bit lower, but the pros there, as you pay that down, your payment adjusts right away. Just like a normal line of credit, it's a line of credit on the equity in your home. You can pay that down. You can draw on it again if you have another home project in the future. Now, when we look at the refinance, again, as I mentioned earlier, when we look at loan amount, you can roll costs into your loan amount in the refinance. And what that does is means you can pay nothing out of pocket, or you can have a slight bit of cash back that can go up to $2,000. Now, what that does is allows you to essentially take a small amount of cash out of the equity of your home, right? Because your net pocketbook benefit is going to allow you to defer 2 months of payments, right? Say we close today on the loan, you're not paying July 1st, you're not paying August 1st. First payment comes due September 1st. So, so you're closing July 15th, July 10th, whatever it may be. You get the point there. We're deferring 2 months. Now those 2 months, plus your escrows, plus your closing costs, are rolled into that loan amount. You pay nothing out of pocket. Your monthly budget increases by 2 months of mortgage payments by your escrow balance refund. So say you're now looking at about $9,000 cash in your pocket as a benefit. So that's kind of the difference we're looking at there, roughly $9,000. You can also opt to pay your closing costs at the time of closing rather than rolling them in. Now in this scenario, I'll say it's a net benefit of about 0, right? So what we want to do is balance this to make sure that you are paying what you would have budgeted for those 2 months of mortgage payments, and then you bring that to closing, right? So you don't necessarily feel like you're spending $7,000. You're essentially keeping that loan amount similar to what you have now. And it increases your monthly savings significantly. I'll compare that relative to a 7-1 or a 10-1 ARM in the jumbo market, just to show them, hey, here's where we're at in jumbo land. The savings just aren't there. Now, in no circumstance does that make sense, but it's for comparison's sake.
So you're still showing it to them, even though you know you're not going to give them an option?
Because I'll always get the question. All right, well, why can't we just do jumbo, or why can't we just do a single loan? Okay, fine. Well, let's look at it.
Okay.
So I'll throw it in there, and then as soon as we go over jumbo and why that's there, I'll go in on the backgrounds, because I'll always adjust this and be able to keep this available, and I'll just change it, and I'll say, all right, let's drop those out so we don't get distracted by it. So now we're looking at just a couple straightforward options here.
Nice. Okay.
So
yeah, because I was going to suggest like going, man, there's a lot of information here. Do people ever get like, dude, I don't know what to do. There's so many options.
Not necessarily, because what I want to show them is, hey, here's what the differences are. And I'll ask them straight up. I'll go, all right, now that we've covered these, would you agree that, you know, if we were to refinance, that structuring in one of these programs would make a lot more sense? Yes, of course. You know, even if they were looking at, their current rate was 3.75, right? Would there be savings to be had by staying in a jumbo or moving into a high balance loan? Yeah, potentially. But yeah, I'll try to dial that in, and I'll remove loan options or add different loan options as we continue to have that discussion, right? So I'll kind of tweak that as we go, which is why I try to encourage them to ask questions as we go, and I'll ask them questions too, because I want to get a response from them. If I'm not getting feedback along the way, then I'm not going to know how to kind of dial this based on how they feel. We would wrap this up and just say, hey, if we're looking at a purchase, the question is, all right, now that we've looked at a couple different price points, a couple different down payment options, what do you think that you would lean towards, or what feels the most comfortable for you? You know, as in terms of monthly payment or down payment, depending on the client and knowing what their scenario is. So then I'll go in, I'll adjust a few different options. I'll say, hey, do these options make sense to you? Do you understand that if we're structuring from your adjustable rate mortgage into a first and a second, are you comfortable with the way that we could set that up for you? Some people say no, right? They don't want to have to deal with 2 loan payments. And that's fine. If we're looking at just going into say this loan amount was 510 and we're looking at 3% versus 3.375, then we go, all right, where are we going to actually see a cost or a benefit of return? Now, to me, if you don't want to pay those fees up front, it's not going to make any sense. And I would tell them straight up, probably not the best idea to refinance. And then I would show them other ways that we could save them money by principal reduction, etc. One of the other things that I wanted to hit on in here was, and I thought this presentation had it in it, but I was mistaken. So a lot of times when people start looking at going from, say they're at 4% and we can get them down to 3%, or they're some massive amount of savings, I'll get the question a lot of times, can I go into a 15-year? Absolutely, we can do that. I'm going to show you. And so we'll structure this similarly here. We'll say first and a second, I'll say the pay the costs at close versus rolling them in. We'll show option 3 at a 15-year. And then I'll show option 4 as a 30-year, even rolling costs in. And we'll add a principal reduction payment in the reinvestment strategy equal to the payment that they would make if it were a 15-year.
Right.
Right. You know, I know I've talked about this with some people before, but others may not have seen that. But many times you can look at the freedom point down here and you can highlight this for them. And you can say, hey, are you comfortable with that 15-year payment? Yeah, that looks great. You know, the interest rate's 2.75. That's awesome. Great. Well, I can show you if you reduce that principal balance by the same amount every single month, your payoff or your freedom point on that loan is 15 years with the 15-year, of course, or 15 years and 7 months if you just use a principal reduction balance. And now guess what? You don't have the monthly debt obligation. If something happens, if some circumstances were to change, right? No one predicted that this would happen right now with coronavirus. Does that make you uneasy? Are you confident that you feel good making a 15-year payment every month for the remainder of that loan?
Yeah,
because I can't change you from 15-year to 30-year if something happens. So my recommendation typically is let's keep that 30-year option, immediately structure it to where you pay the same, and you know you're going to have a faster payoff, and you have the freedom of the lower monthly debt obligation. Now, to wrap that up, I'll just say, hey, what can we do from here? Like, is this something that you're comfortable with? Would you like to move forward with this refinance? I'm going to try and get them to just say, hey, right away, let's get it done. You know, people will have the objection of, let's wait a little bit. Let me try and figure a couple things out. And, you know, I'll let them do that. Say, no problem. I'll follow up with you tomorrow. I'll let you know if there's any movement in the market. We'll stay in touch. Go. And that's pretty much it. I think I don't want to go too much longer in time. But.
No. So one question I had, I like the idea of sending the total cost analysis link a few minutes before your call, because the more you send it out, and then you're not talking to them for another day or two. You've given them an opportunity to like interpret it the way they're going to interpret it, and start asking other people, like, what do you think of this? And bring in our third baseman in, you know, the real estate agent or their parents or something. And then the next thing you know, they're directed somewhere else. So I kind of like the idea of not having them have it to look at very long before I'm reviewing it with them, because I want to control the narrative. And by giving it to them, you give it to them too early, somebody else can control that narrative.
100%. And then if someone's a past client, I'll probably send them a refinance TCA without having that time set up, because they've looked through it before. They understand what they're looking at.
Right.
Because I've explained it to them. Now, especially on the refinance, if you send it to them early, they're going to look at this and they go, well, why are my closing costs $7,000? Well, they're not. Let me show you this, because a portion of this is escrows and interest. Yes, there are closing costs in there, but
Right.
We need to go over it in detail, otherwise they may be turned off right away.
Yeah, in fact, you run the risk of doing the same thing that we don't want to ever do with a client anyway, is just send them a fee sheet and wait for them to call you back. I like that idea. That's good. Anybody else have anything? Any questions or feedback?
I'm impressed by your scripting, dude. It's on point. Makes me realize I need to write down some scripts some more. So good job, dude. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. I think everyone's got a good structure on their call. Everyone does it a little bit differently. Like I said, there's always good takeaways from hearing every single person go through it. And then you can piece it together what works for you.
Yeah, you can't have everybody saying the exact same thing, because you're all gonna develop your own style. But I think it's really valuable just to hear everybody's approach and think about how you do it. As far as scripting is concerned, I can't remember how it's been put, but once you get the script memorized, then you're not going to ever just verbatim repeat your script, but it's going to be in your own words once you've memorized what it is you're going to say. And then it's extremely natural. A lot of people feel like scripting is like something that they don't want to do. No, I don't want to be scripted. That sounds phony. It's like, no, it sounds actually the opposite of phony. It sounds like you really know what you're talking about because you've practiced so much and you've got it down. So for anybody who thinks scripting isn't valuable, it's a huge mistake. You've got to be scripted because you're going to get the same thing. You get the same objections from people. You get the same, just the way you're explaining the escrow accounts. People are going to ask you, well, what's the deal now? How does escrow work? And what you're doing is you're giving them the explanation. There's some positioning that's going on there too, Casey. When you're giving them those explanations, you're positioning yourself as an expert, and they're just going, wow, this guy really knows what he's talking about. If somebody's explaining an escrow account, which we all think is like a no-brainer after being in the business as long as we have, you take it for granted that other people, don't you understand how your escrow works? You just take it for granted that they do.
Yeah, and it's a simple way. It's a very simple thing to just break it down so easily in 10 seconds. And sometimes I'll add in there, first time home buyer. I'll say the first time I bought a house, I had no clue what an escrow account was. I got a tax invoice and I thought I had to pay $4,000 because no one ever told me. So, here you go. Here's a breakdown. Now you understand it and you know where your money's going.
That's great. Anybody else? Good job, Casey, for as short a time you've been doing this. That's pretty solid. Good job, man.
Thank you.
Nothing? Nobody? It was that good, Casey.
Or was that bad?
Was that bad? Yeah, one of the two. No, it was really good, dude. Good job. I'm proud of you. That was awesome. All right. Next week, I don't know who's going to be up. We got John. We got Tom. We want to see how everybody does this, and then we'll put the new kids on the block and we'll make Emily do her presentation. And we're not going to make her. We're going to let her do her presentation. And then Jan will have to do one. And right on. Good job, Casey. Excellent work. Thanks, everybody. And, oh, wait, hang on. So here's the numbers. When I left on Wednesday night, we had 70 applications in the system, 70 app triggers. We're at 103. So that's 33 applications triggered in 3 business days and a couple of weekends. Credit pulls went from 99 to 155. Yowza. 54 million in June and 45 million in July. And now the purchases are starting to kick into gear for July. We're up to 37 purchase deals. So August is starting to not fill up, but we got 5 million obviously in August on June 16th. So great work. Keep it up. Make those files nice and tight. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.